Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Roundup. No special announcements or anything this week, so let's jump right in. First up, MrAddons.com is now selling a board that converts an arcade stick or anything with momentary push-button switches to USB. And this is a Pico fighting board that they're calling the Reflex Encode version 1.1, and it comes flashed with the OpenStick community's firmware and performs at 0.7 milliseconds of latency. So basically, if you want to build your own arcade stick or rewire an existing arcade stick to be used with anything, Mr. PC, whatever, and you want it as fast as possible, this is now another contender out there. There's a few other boards that are very fast as well. So if I were you, if you were building your stick, I might look for ones that might possibly have options that are focused towards you, like what devices they're compatible with. USB should be pretty universal, but some also have PS3 compatibility, whatever else. But also, if you already have something like this installed in your arcade stick, I would kind of do some research and see which model you have. Because there's certainly a ton out there that perform really, really well, but there's also a bunch that don't. So for the $45 you could get this for, depending on what you're doing and what you already have in there, it might actually be worth it to reinstall it. But either way, check this out if you're interested. There should still be stock available, and links to everything you need are right in the description. Next up, I want to talk about RetroSPY, which is free software and hardware that you might not even need depending on your setup. I wanted to open that way because I didn't want people to think that this is something that requires hardware. So let me rewind and start from the beginning. RetroSPY is a software-based project that's a fork of another open source project that allows you to take controller inputs and display them on screen in your streams. And I tested it out with the Mr. FPGA project, and it was super easy. All you do is install the software on your computer, copy the script file to the scripts directory in your Mr., run that, put in your IP address in the software, and that's it. It'll auto-detect it. There's different controller overlays you could use. I just happened to be using the Retrobit USB Saturn controller, so that worked great for my demo. And then you could just do a window capture in OBS, and there's a green background, but then you just add that chroma filter, same as if you were using any kind of green screen behind you. And now you just have a floating controller right over wherever you want to put it. And I did it for a YouTube short social media post, so it's kind of haphazardly stuck in the middle, but you could arrange it any way you'd like. And I thought it was really awesome, to the point where I honestly think even casual streamers might think it was a lot of fun to have this up. So if you stream with the Mr., I mean, the amount of time it takes to set up is so quick, you might as well do it. The only thing that you would need is the Mr. being connected to your network, obviously, but that's it. So I tested it with one that was connected wirelessly and one wired. I also tested it with Mr. Cade as well as one with a regular controller, and everything just worked fine. The only thing that you might want to do if you were a pro gamer, or if you have OCD like I do, you could try to calibrate the display latency. And I guess the best way to do that would be to have an LED hooked up to your controller, and then that way you could take a video of how long it takes from when you press the button on the controller to when the button lights up on screen for your overlay. But it was so close on mine that I didn't even feel the need to do that at all. It was that speedy. So I was just impressed. I thought it was very cool, and I really wanted to share it. But I also wanted to talk about optional hardware if you're not using software emulation. So they are also releasing a device called the Vision USB, and that sits in between your USB controllers and your target device, kind of sniffs the signals going through and does the same thing. Now, obviously this is hardware that they make and sell, so that has a cost to it. It's about $150 plus shipping, and I believe they're looking into trying to do it with non-USB hardware as well. You might need to do some conversion. I don't know if latency would be an issue for that then or something, but overall, I think this is something that people would be really interested in, and I really hope that people, at the very least, give the free software a try. And if it's something that you think is really awesome, maybe look into getting the hardware that goes with it for original consoles and stuff like that. But I just thought this was so much fun. I put up short videos all over social media and stuff like that. So just check it out for yourself, and I really think that people who stream anything to do with Mr. might really enjoy adding this one to their streams. This week's Roundup is once again sponsored by JLCPCB, and this week I want to talk about using the same design but multiple bill of materials to make more than one revision of a product. Now, this is something larger companies have always done, but I think a lot of smaller developers or indie devs kind of often forget that this is a possibility, and it's something I wanted to show. In order to do this, you would start out the same way that you would anytime that you upload a file to JLCPCB. Just go to JLCPCB.com, log into your free account, upload the Gerber file, and then you're going to want to go and select PCB assembly after verifying that everything looks the way you want and the quantity's there, the color's there, etc., etc. Go to assembly, hit next. And now you're at the spot where you're checking out the design, and you can see the differences here. I'll show that afterwards in a second, but let's just move forward. So you're going to add your pick and place file, and now you have to choose which one of your bill of material files that you'll make. So let me show you what the final result of this will be, but all of the process, just please note, is the same. The only change is that you're selecting which of the bill of materials. Okay, so now you should be able to see an example of exactly what I had just shown. If you look over here, and I'm using my flashlight to point here, you can see the comparator circuit is intact. And if you had selected the other bill of materials, you'll see that it's gone, and in its place is, let's just pretend this solder blob right here is a resistor with zero value to it, just a zero value resistor. So now, depending on the design that you wanted, you could have had no comparator circuit or a comparator circuit, but it all just depends on which bill of materials that you selected. And I wanted to do some of the thorough testing when the SCART cleaners arrived to make sure that this is possible before actually doing this, but it totally looks like that's a workable design. So even with smaller indie designs, you could save money, save development time, QA, and testing just by doing stuff like this, where you could have two different versions of a product with the same everything except the bill of material. This one is just has DNP, do not populate, for C12, R4, and all the unpopulated components, and R7 will have a 0 ohm resistor in its place to bridge the circuit. Pretty cool, huh? The 240p Test Suite team has just released the latest beta of the Neo Geo version, which is really exciting because while I often joke about the 240p Test Suite being my favorite game of all time, it is actually an invaluable piece of test software that I would never be able to do half of what I do without it. So the fact that it's coming to the Neo Geo platform is really, really awesome. And also, if you have any ability to load ROMs, so whether you have one of the ROM carts or whether you're using some kind of emulation, you could totally try it out right now. However, a physical release is also going to be planned as soon as it leaves beta. And also, this is going to be the most feature-complete and bug-free official release ever of the 240p Test Suite for this exact reason, because they know if you're going to be purchasing or potentially purchasing a hardware version of it, then they want it to be as solid as possible. The team's been doing an amazing job testing across a bunch of different board revisions, but if you have any of the ROM carts, the Darksoft or the Neo Geo, please give this a try, report any bugs if you find it, but it's looking really, really solid. If you want all of the details, all of the 240p Test Suite posts on Patreon are public. There's nothing behind a paywall. But of course, if you do appreciate the software as much as I do, please consider supporting. But all of the different editions and all of the planned features now or before beta is over are posted there. So definitely check it out. But this is very exciting, and I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what the final product is like, because I definitely want to buy an actual brand new, not cannibalized Neo Geo cartridge with the Test Suite on it. Unfortunately, this next thing is a product that is out of stock from the time that I made the post to the time that this roundup is recorded. However, I wanted to go over it very quickly anyway, just so people could be in the loop of what's going on and decide if they want to purchase it when it's back in stock. But anyway, Crix had stock of the latest Turbo Everdrive Pro in both black and white colors for $220 plus shipping. And this is the Pro version that has arcade card support as well as support for CD optical drive emulation in mono. So the way that the cartridge or HuCard slot works on those consoles, you're not able to get stereo audio from them. So this is definitely something to consider, because there might be possibilities for modifications in the future that allow for stereo audio. Crix is trying to work on some companion products as well that might help with that. But basically, price and features. Is stereo audio super important to you? Then hold off to see what Crix can come up with to add that, if possible at all, in the future. Is price a big deal? Because 220 is $100 cheaper than the SSD S3, and if you already, or if you're only gaming on an RGB monitor, you don't really need HDMI output anyway, so that's something to consider. But if I were you, I would kind of go through all of the different features and see what's best for you, and hopefully there's going to be some news in the future about how it works with stereo, if there's any hacks that could be done. I was originally kind of hoping Crix would just put some kind of like headphone jack right on this, but I don't think that's technically possible anyway. I did get a chance to borrow one real quick and try it out on a Turbo Everdrive, and it performed great. Images loaded very quickly. There was no slowdown or stutter or anything like that. And it was just a lot of fun to play CD-based games right on the Turbo Everdrive, the portable version of it. So that was a whole lot of fun, and that was cool. And if you really wanted an amazing portable way to play those games, then this is kind of a no-brainer. But anyway, just kind of make your own decision. I think it's an awesome product, but you know, it's not going to be for everybody because of the hardware limitation of no out-of-box stereo audio from the CD stuff. But kind of make your own decision, because this is still a very awesome product. A couple of weeks ago, Tito from Macho Nacho Productions did an awesome video about the Game Boy Camera Plus mod. And this is something that we talked about before, but Tito did an awesome job showing how to install it and showing the differences. And I've always been a massive fan of artwork done with the Game Boy camera. I kind of wrote it off at first, but Cousin Scott really got me into it and did a lot of his own work with it, and kind of was looking to do a few other projects with it. And I just keep seeing stuff like this, and it just makes me happy every time I see it. So if you're into the Game Boy, if you're into photography, if you're into modding, or if you just really like Tito's videos, please check out his post and the video, of course. You know, check out both. If you prefer a written form, you could get the summary here, but I think we all know Tito makes good videos. So give this one a watch, and I just really enjoyed it and wanted to make sure we shared it here. Another awesome video from Tito shows how to re-enable the IDE hard drive support in certain model PS2 Slims. Now, you're obviously not going to fit a full-sized IDE hard drive, even a laptop hard drive, into the Slim. However, Tito shows you how to do that, plus mount a connector or a converter that you could install a micro SD card slot as a no-cut mod, because the micro SD card will fit through one of the vent slots in the bottom. The whole thing is really cool. Now, it is very complicated. It is not a mod for the faint of heart. However, it was a very cool one, and it involves a new custom flex cable, and Tito walks through the whole thing, so no more spoilers. But I just thought this was really, really cool. And if you enjoy modding, and if you really like doing stuff like this, this is a very, very awesome way to add hard drive support to your original PlayStation 2. And while, of course, we mostly would use it for homebrew, I also think you could probably use it for a lot of the same stuff you'd be able to use the original hard drive for, which isn't that useful these days. But I mean, I think it really feels like, what if Sony put a micro SD card official reader as a hard drive in the PS2 Slim? It kind of feels like what it would be like, so definitely check the video out for all the details. Now it's time for this week's Mr. Updates, care of Lou from Lou's Retro Source. As usual, I'm going to skim through these and really just only add my thoughts where I feel like talking about something, but if you hear anything that piques your interest, please check out Lou's video for all of the details on it. First up, developer Hans Beyer is currently creating a fork of Mister called Mistex, with the goal of being able to use whatever FPGA chip you want paired with the Allwinner D1 as the processor chip. So this is important because it's not just a fork of Mister. It's not saying I'm making my version of Mister on my hardware. It's a way to really start working on how to move onto other hardware platforms. Because the DE10 Nano, you could still buy it, and you could still buy it for under 250 bucks. You don't have to get it from scalpers, but that's still something that might not always be guaranteed to be available, and all products go end of life at some point. So it's not just about switching for cost or availability. You want to be able, or temporary availability. You want a future plan to make sure that all of these software cores survive and could be used on more hardware. So I think this is really important. I've seen a few other forks of it. I've been talking with people who have their own ideas of it, and it's all stuff that it's kind of in its beginning stages, but I do think we really all need to kind of work towards this. And I don't want to see the software fractured. I don't want to see, all right, well, this software will only work on this hardware, and this developer's only working on that hardware. I really want to see everybody continue to be centrally focused, but with the ability to add more hardware versions to it. It's kind of a bad example, but kind of like how you could use a lot of the same distros on multiple versions of the Raspberry Pi. It's not going to be that simple, not even remotely close, but the thought of it as a user, from the user side, I hope would be as easy as that. So, shout out to Hans for starting work on this, and for all the other people I know who might not have been so public about it, because I think this is a huge undertaking, but it's crucial to have this project, to enable this project to move forward. Next up, the in-development Neo Geo CD core can now play CD audio on a few games. If you want to test it out yourself, you could manually download a version of it, but it'll eventually be in the main build. And that's cool, because there are some Neo Geo exclusives that I'm interested to play on the Mister. Hotego has finally managed to get the frame buffer working on Outrun, which would allow the core to operate at a lower speed, but still render all sprites on time. So hopefully this fixes some sprite rendering bugs, and overall, I love Outrun, so thank you to Hotego for going back to this and tweaking it anymore. Hotego also included the children's game Magical Pumpkin for the CPS-1 core, which this game was designed for that board when it was no longer viable for modern games, and it was found in amusement parks and shopping centers, and was put in a ride-on cabinet. Lou's got footage of this in the video. If you're interested, definitely check that out, because that's kind of a fun and weird piece of history. Hotego's also added Mike Simone's IC work to his framework, which would allow the core to generate S-Video and Composite from all of the Hotego cores. I'm not sure if all of them have been updated yet, but I mean, respectfully, who cares? It's in the framework. It'll get there eventually. You might have to wait a little while. Hotego's took Mike's hard work, and it's a win for everybody. So even if your core doesn't work with Composite today, maybe it will in a week. So thank you to both Mike and Hotego. Also, it looks like Sorg has been updating the framework on a ton of other cores to officially support Mike's work as well. So definitely run your favorite update script. Mine is still and has always been update all by the Ypsilon. You can go through, just run it, make sure you get everything updated, and you should be able to enable that with one of those hardware modules that multiple different stores sell. Also, developer Pramod is working on a core for the arcade game Narc, which is pretty cool. I haven't played that in a million years. Anton Gale keeps progressing with the schematics for the Taito System SJ hardware, which runs the game Elevator Action. And developer Rocky, I apologize if I'm getting that wrong, has already released a Nemesis core for Mister, and they've already been working on an alternate version of Gradius that runs on Konami's Bubble system. So what's unique about the hardware is that it introduced a new form of data storage called bubble memory cartridges for arcade games. So that's kind of neat. And there's been a bunch of other updates and everything else. If you want to see the full list, definitely check out Lou's video, but those are kind of the major ones. And this week I really just wanted to talk about the fork and how it seems like they're approaching this correctly, or at least in my opinion correctly, and I'm excited about all of that stuff. So as always, make sure to subscribe to Lou, check out his videos, and there's no way I could keep up with all this stuff without him. So thanks very much, Lou. Well, kind of a short week this week. I had a whole bunch of stuff going on, and I wasn't able to keep up with some of the things that I wanted to write about, but I was able to at least get posts out for the time-sensitive stuff, which unfortunately for the Turbo Everdrive was a little too late for this roundup, but at least if you follow the site and social media, you should have found that immediately when they went up for sale. But, as always, I never care how long these are, as long as I feel that they need to be. So if we have some 10-minute roundups some weeks, I'm cool with that. If we have some hour-plus ones other weeks, I'm cool with that too. I just want to get the information out in the way that I feel gives everybody what they need without rambling too much and not leaving anybody guessing what the heck were they talking about. So hopefully I still pull that off. But anyway, as always, thank you to everybody who watches, listens, plays nicely in the comments, and especially thank you to everybody who supports in any way possible, because it is you who is keeping all of this going. So thank you all so much, and I'll see you next week.